loving, baby, loving right now. I want some kissing, baby, see what I've been missing, baby. I want some kissing, baby, kissing right now. Don't try to run away from me and don't try to get wise, 'cause it's time you settle down and kiss someone your size. I want some squeezing, baby, so stop your teasing, baby. I want some loving, baby, loving right now.
The sounds of sirens, subways, and busy crowds of people makes Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Dion feel right at home. New York Is My Home is the latest project from Dion and co-produced by Jimmy Vivino, featuring guest vocals by fellow New Yorker Paul Simon on the title cut.
I'm not alone. New York is my home.
New York Is My Home contains 8 new Dion compositions and 2 choice blues covers. The result is pure rock and roll from the legend that's lived a lifetime defining it.
I can't go back to Memphis. I'm just not too wrong.
Dion, New York Is My Home.
Big house here. Walking, honking, moaning, rocking the righteous red. Oh, yeah.
New York Is My Home from Dion, available from Instant Records. We're back on the Rockabilly and Blues Radio Hour. We just heard the duo of Jimmy Dale and Duane Eddy with I Want Some Lovin' Baby from 1956. Duane Eddy is our guest this week, and we're talking about this time period where the duo broke up just after recording these tunes. Here's Duane.
I went away to California and worked at the gas company over there in an office for 6 months, I guess. And I got so homesick I quit and came back. And first thing I ran into Jimmy, and he says, "Guess what? I can sing with you again." And I said, "Really? How can you do that? Did the church change their rules?" And he said, "No, I backslid." So we went up and sang again at the place in Phoenix. And when I was up there, man, people were yelling and having a big time, and we were too, and just rocking out. And I thought, man, this is what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, because I don't picture myself being a hit country artist, singer. And didn't even occur to me to do instrumentals at that time. I knew I wanted to do it somehow. So anyway, fast forward a couple of years after that. Actually, that was late 55. So in 57, Lee had produced a record by Sanford Clark called The Fool, and it was a top 10 record all around the country. So he kept trying to make more, and he recorded everybody that hummed a song in Phoenix, but he couldn't get anything else. He even tried instrumentals with other guitar players and stuff, and they were all signed up to all these little labels in California, So one day he came to me, he says, "I want to do an instrumental, but everybody's all signed up." He said, "You're the only one left." He said, "Why don't you go home and write something?" So I went home and wrote a song called Movin and Groovin. And we cut it and put it out, and it got up to number 70. It came out in January 58. They said, the record company back in Philadelphia said, "Well, go back in and do something else." And so we went back in March and got to the session, and I had the drummer play a backbeat, and I wrote Rebel Rouser. We finished that up, and it came out and was the big hit of the summer. The rest is history, as they say.
Tell me how your twang sound came about.
I knew from listening to the country records, Hank Williams, and later on Buck Owens and people like that, you know, I knew I had to have my own sound, my own style, which I achieved by having playing on the bass strings because they were stronger and more powerful. I used a de-arming tremolo, which gave it a little different sound. I didn't use it on Movin and Groovin, but I did on Rebel Rouser. Movin and Groovin was kind of an experiment. I did high notes and low notes, you know, and I thought it was kind of dumb, really. You know, it was just 1-2 licks, you know, put together. But when you put the sax overdub on it and everything, it worked. So it became in fact, it was one of the influenced all those surfers out in California, and then a lot of people give it credit for being the first surf record, instrumental, which if I'd known they were going to do that, I wouldn't. No, I'm kidding.
Your debut album, Have Twangy Guitar Will Travel, now it stayed on the top albums chart for 82 weeks, a year and a half. That's pretty remarkable.
I got to number 5 in the charts, and didn't stay there, but for those 82 weeks, darn it. Yeah, it got up to number 5 in the top 10 and stayed there for a few weeks, I guess, in the top 10, different numbers. But then it'd fall, and then it'd come back up and fall and come back up for over a year and a half, along with South Pacific. Was the other one that did that. I think it stayed a few weeks longer, actually. But myself and Elvis Presley were the only ones doing albums at that first. I was the only one doing stereo and rock and roll, because we after we did Rebel Rouser, the studio in Phoenix there invested in a 4-track machine, and so we had 2 tracks each side so we could do stereo. And I did my part of my first album, Have Twangy Guitar Will Travel, the one we're just talking about, in stereo.
From the 1958 album Have Twangy Guitar Will Travel, that's a tune I Almost Lost in My Mind by our guest, Duane Eddy.
I remember you telling me a story about a conversation you had with Elvis, him asking what you liked better, mono versus stereo.
It was fun talking to him. He was just the greatest guy, and he was just exactly what you'd want him to be, you know, if you're a fan or if you weren't. I watched him that evening. He had the best manners of anybody I ever saw. because it was a farewell, a goodbye party. You know, he worked at the Hilton for several weeks, and this was the last night, and all the musicians, his father was there, and Priscilla was there, and all the people from the hotel, the promotion people and the directors and stuff that helped put on the show, all came up. They had a big buffet for him, and he circled the room and talked, and I'd gone over after the show, and he invited me up. And so I sat and we started talking when he first came in the room there, and he said, "Do you like mono or stereo?" And I said, "Well, I like them both. I kind of like stereo." I said, "It's, you know, kind of new and different." And I said, "It's kind of cool to hear the whole band lined up there. Like, you shut your eyes and listen, you can just picture it." He says, "Yeah." He says, That's okay." He said, "But I like mono." And I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "It's got all that power coming out of one speaker. It comes right out and hits you right in the chest." He said, pounds himself on the chest. He said, "I love that power." And he did. That's what he liked about it.
You referenced this earlier, but you were one of the first people to list the musicians on the back of your record, which was really cool. And something probably, you know, that helped influence other people. Like you were trying to figure out who was playing certain things. So that was pretty neat.
I wondered who played on those country records, and I never could find out, you know. Stories would drift back to us from Nashville, you know. Guys would come through with big artists, and they'd bring their bands along, and our local honky-tonk club guys, you know, that played in all the clubs around Phoenix would go back there and hang with them like a bunch of yokels and look and stare at them and gape at them and listen to them talk, you know. And sometimes some of the more braver ones would just strike up a conversation. They'd say, "Well, that Honky-Tonk Man by Johnny Horton, who played guitar on that?" They'd tell them, and then we would know that it was Grady Martin, or on Brenda Lee's that it was Hank Garland. Or it was years before I found out that it was Chet Atkins doing the boom chink dum chink on the Hank Williams thing, the tick 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 tick, because they had no drums, you know. So it was basically the drummer.